Okay, so for the last 48 days, the United States and Iran have been teetering on the brink of a much wider war. The rhetoric was getting hotter, the military was ready to strike, and then, just like that, everything changed. So what gives? We're going to break down 3 hidden clues that point to a pretty dramatic shift in the global balance of power.
Just hours before the big pivot, the message coming out of the Pentagon couldn't have been clearer. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said the U.S. was locked and loaded, totally ready to start bombing again. The message to the world was basically, Iran is going to have to blink and bow to American demands or else.
And then, this. Totally out of left field. President Trump announces not an escalation, but a breakthrough, a 10-day ceasefire. He's even inviting leaders to the White House. So you have to ask, what on earth happened in those few hours?
And that is the big question here, right? How do you go from locked and loaded to peace talks, literally overnight? Well, the answer isn't in just one thing. It's actually in a series of clues that, when you put them all together, paint a pretty startling picture of a new global reality.
All right, so let's start digging. Our first clue is actually hiding in plain sight, right there in the ceasefire deal itself. And it reveals not just some minor compromise, but a huge American concession on something they publicly swore they would never agree to.
First, you gotta understand just how big of a deal this is historically. We are talking about the first real direct talks between Israel and Lebanon at the White House in over 34 years. This is not your everyday diplomatic meeting. This is a landmark moment.
And here's the U-turn in black and white. Initially, the U.S. position was firm. Any truce would not include Lebanon, period. Iran, on the other hand, insisted it was an absolute must. Well, take a look at the final deal. It's exactly what Iran demanded, not what the U.S. wanted. Look, this wasn't some 50-50 compromise. The United States did a complete 180 on its own red line. That really suggests that something was forcing their hand, making a deal, even a deal on their opponent's terms, a better option than keeping the conflict going. But why? For our second clue, we're moving away from the negotiating table and onto the factory floor. And what we find is a frankly shocking crisis brewing inside America's own military-industrial complex.
Just look at this number. 9 times. Let that sink in for a second. During this fight, the U.S. has been firing its top-of-the-line Tomahawk cruise missiles 9 times faster than it can build them. For every single new missile that comes off the assembly line, 9 are going out the door.
Yeah, this chart really lays it all out. A burn rate like this is completely, totally unsustainable. It's like you're spending $9 for every $1 you make. You just can't keep that up for long. The arsenal is being drained at an absolutely alarming rate. And if you're wondering just how serious this shortage is, get this. The Pentagon has done something extraordinary. They've started calling up civilian companies, car makers like GM and Ford, asking them if they can start building weapons. I mean, that's the kind of thing you hear about from World War II, not today. And here's a perfect example of why they're burning through missiles so fast. The US spends around $8 million on 2 missiles to knock out 1 bridge. And then, in less than 100 hours, Iranian engineers have it right back up and running. The US was just burning through its incredibly expensive, limited supply for very little strategic gain. Okay, for our last clue, we're going from the arsenal to the open ocean. We're tracking one of the most powerful symbols of American power on the planet, a nuclear-powered supercarrier. And its recent travel log, well, it tells a very, very interesting story.
So normally, to get where it's going, the USS George W. Bush would just zip right through the Red Sea. Simple. Instead, it was spotted taking the scenic route. And by scenic, I mean the very long way around the entire continent of Africa.
This isn't a small change of plans. This detour adds about 4,000 nautical miles and an extra 11 days to its trip. That is a massive logistical strain. More fuel, more time, more resources, all to avoid one specific body of water.
So you have to ask yourself why. Why take this crazy detour? And really, there's only one logical answer. The Pentagon no longer considers the Red Sea safe for its most valuable assets. And when a US supercarrier has to sail thousands of miles out of its way to avoid a fight, that sends a huge message to the entire world about who really controls those waters.
So let's put all these puzzle pieces together. You have a diplomatic backdown, a critically low weapons supply, and a Navy taking massive detours to avoid a fight. What does it all add up to?
See, these aren't just isolated events or minor tactical adjustments. They are all symptoms pointing to the exact same conclusion. a United States military that is overextended and facing serious new limits. And you better believe the rest of the world is taking notice. And because they're watching, they're starting to make their own plans. At a recent conference, Turkey confirmed it's launching a brand new regional security platform with other major powers like Saudi Arabia and Pakistan.
This isn't happening in a vacuum. These key nations are essentially building their own security framework without the United States. They're no longer willing to bet everything on a world policeman that seems too stretched thin to show up when they're needed.
You know, historians have talked about the warning signs of a superpower in decline for ages. An overextended military? Check. A massive national debt? Check. Getting bogged down in endless wars you can't really win? Check. It's kind of spooky how well the events of the last 48 days seem to fit right into this historical pattern. The U-turn on the ceasefire, the scramble for missiles, and the detour around Africa all point toward a fundamental change. The unipolar moment, the era dominated by a single superpower, might be giving way to a multipolar world. And that leaves all of us with the ultimate question. As this old order starts to fade, what comes next, and who's going to be in charge?